this is a quote from Carlos in episode 2. I'm looking for love with a girl who has a noble heart.
That's beautiful.
He wasn't afraid of his vulnerability.
I like that you picked out a nice thing. So, because what I picked out is a couple of the guys were like thin, blonde, hot, and I was like, even the guys with Down syndrome. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
What up, fuckers? How you doing? Did you drink enough water today? Welcome to another episode of Guys We Fcked.
It's the Anti-Slut Shaming Podcast. I'm Corinne Fisher.
I'm Krystyna Hutchinson.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Before we get into the show, well, first off, let's handle us first because we're the most important.
Yes.
Goddamn right. I think it's okay to say as a woman. It's so funny because you're like, oh, it's a little presumptuous, and I'm like, this is our fucking podcast. Of course, we're the most important people on it.
Oh yeah, no, that's wow. You pulled a me there.
That was ridiculous.
With that thought.
Well, when you just have everyone squawking at you nonstop.
For sure.
Squawking. So, Guys We Fcked. We are doing a live show in New York City. Probably going to do more, but right now we're going to start it off with one live at the Midnight Theater. This is happening Friday, September 8th. At 9:30 p.m.
In Hudson Yards, there's a Peloton store and a Whole Foods store right next door to the Midnight Theater, so you know that theater is going to be a bougie.
This theater, if you have not been to it yet, it's gorgeous. It's an experience. You definitely need to come out just for the theater. Just come, just buy a ticket just to see the theater.
Yes,
for architectural,
and then you get a huge bonus. Me and Corinne,
and interior design. We're gonna have such a fun show. Mike's gonna be there, and
yes, sir.
We only have 6 tickets in the front section left.
Yeah, there's two price points of tickets. Obviously, more expensive in the front, less expensive in the back. But don't let that dissuade you. If you can only afford the tickets in the back, they're literally all good.
Still
seats.
A party.
They're all good seats.
Yes.
We'll have a great time.
We're gonna have a great time.
And and it is the Guys We Fcked the podcast live. And it's not a stand-up show.
No, it's not stand-up.
I know some of you don't like the stand-up shows, so you've made it clear.
So don't go to one.
So don't. But some of you love the stand-up shows.
To Guys We Fcked live at the Midnight Theater, 9:30 p.m. Friday, September 8th. And you can find tickets at any of our bios, the Linktree link, at Guys We Fcked without the U and fucked. I'm at Krystyna Hutch.
I'm at Philanthropy Gal.
And I am at Mike Coscarelli.
Did you put the link in the bio?
You got to put the link in your Linktree, though, Mike. I know you didn't.
Oh, no.
We know you didn't.
Send me the link. I'll put it in there.
Well, it's in mine. Do you have a Linktree?
I don't have a Linktree, but I have.
We have a lot to do today. You have a lot to do today.
What else is fucking new?
These hoes ain't loyal.
And also, something I have to do today is wish Chelsea Hyde a very happy 7th wedding anniversary.
Happy wedding anniversary.
This is a message from your husband, Henry, who came in with your son, Jack, to Perfectly Centered, 1989 Palmer Avenue, Larchmont, New York. And
go to it.
He did say he came in, he strolled in, and this was the reason I said yes to this request. And no one else is allowed to make this request.
Only one.
This is the only time I'm doing it. Absolutely, after this, do not come into my store unless you're there to buy something. Okay, a store is for buying things. Yeah, he did come in, and he came in person and said, my wife is a really huge fan of yours, and I have an odd request. And I said, hit me. I said, hit me, Henry. Don't literally hit me. He was a big guy, but yeah. And then he said, could you on the podcast do a anniversary shout out? And I was like, this is bold. I said, Henry, this is bold.
He drove all the way down there.
This is bold. Well, I think they live in the area, but I was like, okay. I said, Henry, this is bold. And also, I noticed that he brought his very cute son, and I was like, obviously, you're not a fan of me because I know you're trying to use this to lure me into doing what you want me to do. And Henry, you should have brought a dog. That's the bad news. Your son is extremely cute, but I was like, Henry doesn't know the work of Corinne Fisher.
That's right.
No, Henry should have walked in
That does not move the needle for Corinne.
I scratch your back, you scratch mine, either by way of buying something from my store or bringing a goddamn dog for me to look at.
Because I knew the move. I was like, oh, he purposely came with his very cute son. And listen, I chatted with Jack. Jack was a very nice fellow.
How old?
Kid age, toddler.
Toddler, like 3, 4 kind of thing? Okay.
2 to 4.
Okay.
In that range.
I can't tell how
Yeah,
old
some of
kids
them are big. I don't know what they're putting
some
in
of them
the
are
food.
tall. Stop drinking milk, guys.
He was in a stroller still, but like a
bigger kid stroller.
the moving on up stroller.
Yeah.
You know?
I got you. The little seatbelt stroller.
Yeah, he wasn't 4 because I don't think he could fully talk. Who the fuck knows? But anyway, yeah, and then. So happy anniversary, Chelsea. 7 years. I applaud that your husband, number one, knew enough about your interests, followed it, came to my store, all these things. But I am gonna out Henry.
Oh,
so then I was like, I'm only doing this for you just because I honestly was impressed by the boldness of the request, as we talked about on the, about with 9/11 and ISIS and terrorists in general.
You wanted to do something, you did it.
We like when people get out and do something.
And it's nicer when the thing you're doing isn't murdering thousands of people.
Yeah, it's nicer when it's just an anniversary shout out for your wife on a podcast that she really enjoys.
Absolutely.
Then I get home, I'm checking my multiple email accounts.
So many.
I'm a busy bitch.
So busy.
And then I have an email from Henry in my perfectly centered email that says, "Hey, it's Henry. I remember you. It's a mom and pop shop."
Yeah, it's on the email. Yeah.
And he says, "Just following up, even though I had already done a diligent job, as I always do, in obtaining the information I would need for this shout out. I had him write it on this exclusive, perfectly centered paper.
Henry
It's a legal pad. And then he followed up with all the information as if I was going to forget, and then said, "Can you please email me the episode when it comes out?"
Wow.
Henry, I am
Are we
not
your
assistant. Henry, that was a wild request. Henry, you took it.
You're treating us like a wife,
You
Henry.
give people an inch, they take a mile. So I was like, Henry doesn't know this because obviously, because of the kid thing, he's not familiar enough with my personality. But I was like, Henry's about this
shout out go with a bird.
Shout out is about to do a 360, Henry, because I'm outing you to your wife.
How about if you care that much, you just you just listen to the show.
The podcast has been on for 10 years, Henry.
Also, Henry, welcome to the business. We only send air checks out when people pay us money.
Oh,
that's when we send the air check.
in the producer's booth.
If you want an air check, advertise.
Wow.
You have a business?
You know what? We should sell anniversary shout outs, birthday shout outs.
Oh
Go to the show.
God,
we'll buy more soundproofing.
Yeah.
Sorry about last night's show at gmail.com.
But anyway, very, very happy anniversary to you, Chelsea. I'm glad that you found a husband who gets out there and does it, even though, he uses your child
as bait. I appreciate it.
And, I think we all learned something on this anniversary. It's only the 7th, Henry, so you're going to get better.
Time to improve.
You're going to become a more, who knows how old Henry, you look to be
eat your veggies,
a little
Henry.
older than me, so I'm not sure, but I'm,
I was young.
Who knows if he was even fully matured yet,
Well, yeah.
As far as, mentally, at this rate that I've been coming into men, it's about, between like 48 to 55, I think, is when they're finally having the self-actualization, it seems.
It takes a while.
If that. When they have all the tests, when they're like 60 plus and they've gotten a lot of estrogen, because men get estrogen as they get older, and then their legs go bald, which is hilarious. I wish that would happen to me. But yeah, then they get nicer.
Yeah, but
they just got to they need more of that female hormone.
Henry, though, I have faith in you, and happy anniversary, Chelsea and Henry, and I hope you're married for at least 7 more years.
Yes, and don't tell him about. Just don't. Did you reply to that email?
Hell no! Yeah. I'm not Henry's bitch.
Then wait.
Fuck no.
And we'll know if her wife is a Luminary subscriber or not. If Henry gets back to you, this weekend.
Well, we'll see. I was like,
she hasn't listened to the show in 5 years.
This is bold. Henry knows where I work now. Henry could come back and attack.
Yeah, you'd rather him not know, wouldn't you?
No, I'm not. Yeah. I'll fight anyone in Larchmont.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been there. I get it.
Yeah.
It's like Stars Hollow.
I'll fucking fight anyone in Larchmont, New York. Come get me.
Yeah, they're not going to fight you.
I mean, I guess they could just drive from another town, but in Larchmont, I feel confident that I'm the baddest bitch in Larchmont.
I agree. Somebody's visited Larchmont a couple times now.
Lovely place.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Lovely place.
Beautiful.
All right. So this is, if you want to email us, it's sorryboutlastnightshow@gmail.com. The subject line is PSA to get out of your toxic relationship before they become incapacitated and you have to change their diapers.
How appropriate.
Me, so horny. That's
not on a new couch, Corinne. It's fabric.
Hi, Corinne and Krystyna and Mike. I am a 36-year-old female. I have lived in the southern U.S. all of my life and was raised in the late 90s, early 2000s, purity culture. Listening to your show has been immensely educational and healing for me. I decided to write in after listening to your episode this week about remaining in a relationship if your partner becomes mentally and or physically incapacitated. And I will say, just overall, kind of looking at the comments, I saw a lot of women being like, of course I would stick with him and I wouldn't even try to fuck anyone else.
Would he do that?
Men, crickets. All right. And then someone else, I think maybe like a lawyer messaged me and was like, yeah, I mean, like the statistics are staggering as far as like the divorce rate between when someone has like a traumatic brain injury and if it's the man or the woman. Staggering.
Of course.
Almost no men stay. I am currently going through a divorce 2 years after my husband, we'll call him Josh, was in a catastrophic accident during a high-risk motorsport race and was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. He was left with a severe, and this is also kind of plays into like these fears that I think women often have when our male partners do partake in high risk things.
Yeah,
you know?
that's true.
Because it's
that's
like
fucking true.
Things like getting a motorcycle and stuff. It's like I don't think men really think through like you're like it's traumatizing to
for the partner. Yeah,
we're so scared all the time for you and. So it's not that we don't want you to do fun things, but like you also made a promise to us like to be there. So don't die. Okay. During a high-risk motorsport race and was in a coma for 2.5 weeks. He was left with a severe traumatic brain injury, including other physical deficits such as speech, partial hemiparesis, and partial blindness.
Damn.
He is not able to work or drive, but is able to make decisions for himself. Neuropsychologists can help you determine this, and is able to live independently. We were both 34 at the time of the accident. Josh was hospitalized for over half a year out of state due to better neurorehabilitation programs being available there. At first, he was not able to speak, walk, or go to the bathroom on his own, among many other things, but he gradually regained those functions. I drove 3 hours each way to stay with him every weekend as I worked during the week. I can confidently say that, at least for me, once you help change your husband's diapers and restrain him to prevent smearing of his own feces with his hands, you will never be able to unsee that. I've done it. I mean, not for my husband, but
for your dad.
Yeah.
But did it change the way? I mean, that's just got to change. Like
no, but I'm saying that's why I know. I'm like yes. If I was his wife, it would have changed. I mean, I was like, it did not change the way I saw him as my father because I think as children, you kind of know that ultimately the child becomes the parent.
Right.
That's kind of known. That's talked about.
But not until like later.
Right. Yeah. Before the accident, he raced motorcycles recreationally. We argued over this, and I had threatened to leave our marriage when he had a few near-miss accidents resulting in concussions. This is what I'm talking because I think it's like
when you think of marriage as a business, this conversation sounds more comfortable, honestly.
Right, and it's also so easy. Like it's so easy, and I see so many people being like, "Well, of course you should stay with him," and like it's so easy to sound selfish as like the woman in this situation. But exactly, like I brought this up because we don't read these emails. Like we have our Isabella surprise us with the emails so we can organically react on the show. And just like I said a couple moments earlier, like the high risk behavior that men constantly engage in, like that's something that we don't talk about enough. Add it to the list of things that I'm mad about this week.
Adding it.
However, he refused to stop racing. I realize now that by staying, I was betraying and devaluing myself. Oh, this is a listener. I love it. We had several other problems in our marriage. He had a very unhealthy relationship with alcohol and often went out partying without me. And we had difficulty navigating conflict. I would shut down, and he would often threaten to kill himself after perceived criticism from me or experience of a personal failure, at least once a month. Wow, that's heavy.
Jesus, once a month. That's tough.
I also caught him in several big lies about money and things he promised to do but did not.
Damn.
He was very manipulative. We were in therapy 6 out of our 8 years of marriage, but ultimately we were incompatible and should have never gotten married. Let this be a cautionary tale for all your listeners.
Yeah.
If you are in a relationship that is not healthy, don't be a dumb bitch and get out while you can. Well, I think
that's a definition of dumb bitch. A dumb bitch does not get out when she or he should.
Right, and I think sometimes we're like, well, you know, all relationships have problems.
Of course.
how unhealthy is this? How do you know when it's so unhealthy that you should get out? I mean, probably if you're constantly thinking if this is
Also,
unhealthy.
too, it's always helpful to keep a diary. If you have a tumultuous relationship, keep a diary of your thoughts so you can go back and go, oh my God, 20 out of the 30 days last month, I was really angry with him and felt violated or manipulated or whatever. Then there you go. Numbers don't lie.
Yeah, and a pros and cons list. I mean, I know it sounds almost like ridiculous, but my mom
smart.
growing up was always very big on having me sit down and make a pros and cons list about any decision I was going to make, and I definitely have taken that into my adult life.
Yeah.
When he came home, he gradually began having more and more violent outbursts, would hit me or throw things at me, and made inappropriate sexual comments to our male and female friends. Well, I mean, that's part of the injury. What?
The brain injury was doing that.
Yeah. Before the accident, to my knowledge, he only found women sexually attractive. Interesting. His cognition is such that he can still be very manipulative and tries to get away with lies.
Ugh.
He would hide alcohol and drink during the day when I was at work, and I would come home to him barely able to walk because alcohol affects people differently after a TBI, especially balance. I can't imagine drinking with a traumatic brain injury. Whoa. And his doctor had advised him not to drink. Being a caregiver, working a full-time job, financial burden due to high cost of his medical care, and going from 2 incomes to 1 and not feeling safe around him broke me after a while.
Yeah,
I can't
imagine that.
how exhausted you must have been. I also felt like my chance to have children was stolen from me.
Yeah.
I became extremely depressed and felt completely devoid of all hope. I would have moments where I would be driving home from work and have intrusive thoughts about ways to end my life so I wouldn't have to feel so much pain anymore.
Yeah.
Once he got on disability and Medicare, and with the help of my therapist, I decided to discuss ending our marriage. He was sad, but agreed and understood.
That's awesome.
He is in a safe environment, close to his very supportive family, and living independently. This was the hardest decision I ever had to make, but one that I had to make for myself, knowing others' opinions do not matter.
Correct.
I could no longer sacrifice the rest of my life for this. Yeah, and there's also people who went into this field where they're during the day they're going to care for this person, and then they're going to go home to their own families and their own support systems. When you are that's your whole life, it's completely different, you know? Idiots who want to pass judgment in these situations can kick rocks. There is a saying in the TBI world that if you've seen one brain injury, you've seen one brain injury.
Oh, interesting.
Meaning every brain injury is different. The same is true for how a TBI affects a marriage or other romantic relationship and the decision to go, stay or go.
Good point.
Josh and I communicate every week with appropriate boundaries, and we still want the best for each other. I am working on becoming a better version of myself by healing negative patterns that have not served me well in the past, cultivating my relationships with friends and family, and renewing my physical and mental health. I would like to freeze my eggs and start dating again soon with a much healthier self-awareness. A year ago, I felt completely dead inside. Now I have hope. You've played a part in that.
Aww.
Thank you for highlighting this issue in the caregiver community. I almost cried, but I didn't.
I did cry.
And then, but I think that's really interesting. Also, this is, unique, as is every relationship, because you were also having problems before the TBI.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes something as life-changing as a TBI is really either going to, I think it could have gone either way. So this shone a light on all the issues that you guys already had, and it wasn't going to work. But I think there's also the scenario where everyone gets their shit together immediately, and we're going to make this work because something unthinkable has happened.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. You reel in the resources and your energy.
Yeah. I mean, people really, TBI, people really shown their true colors, and it's not just the person with the TBI.
That's very true.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, that was a good story.
Thank you so much for writing.
Thank you for writing us. And come see us live. In addition to Friday, September 8th, 9:30 p.m. in New York City at the Midnight Theater, where Corinne and I will be gracing the stage.
Oh, yes.
You can also find, both of us will be at Skankfest Las Vegas, September 29th. I'm going to be headlining in Springville,
and
Utah.
30th, yeah.
Oh, and 30th. October 20th and 21st. Bridgeport, Connecticut, November 2nd through 4th. Chicago, November 10th and 11th. We took away that Thursday show, which honestly, yay. Nashville, November 12th. Springfield, Missouri, November 16th to the 18th. And as always, I have a Patreon where 3 to 4 times a month, I host a Zoom group therapy session. I say group therapy because I don't know what else to call it. I'm not a licensed therapist, but we just basically, let's just get shit off our chests and go. And I give advice, and I'm funny, and it's pretty fucking fantastic. The human spirit is very resilient, and this is a space where you can be reminded of that. And if you can't make them and you want to listen to all of these group therapy and quote sessions, you can sign up for my Patreon for $5 a month. Krystyna Hutchinson, patreon.com/Krystyna Hutchinson, rather, because all the audio from these sessions gets uploaded to the Patreon, so you can listen to it forever.
And for me, I have my other podcast, Without a Country. We discuss politics from the perspective of the right, the left, everywhere in between. It's a super fun show. It is now my solo podcast, and I really love it. So if you enjoy my takes on things, I think it's a show that you would really enjoy. We talk a lot about domestic violence and how everyone kind of has it. It's like 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, 6 degrees of domestic violence, basically. Obviously not as fun as the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, but I would argue more important. And,
for sure.
We have a lot of interesting guests on. Right now, I'm trying to get Kimberly Mata Rubio on the show, who is the mom of one of the children who was slain in the Uvalde Robb Elementary School shooting. Because last week I discovered in my research for that show that she is now running to be the mayor of Uvalde, and she has a whole campaign that I'm going to donate to and stuff. And I just thought that was really interesting. So I kind of try to find people like that are doing good work that we might not see on a large scale. We might not see an article about them in the New York Times or something. I mean, we might. But try to get those people on the show and have really interesting conversations. A couple months ago we had one of Chris D'Elia's victims on the show. So I find people and I get them on and we have great chats, and I really enjoy doing that. And of course, then we just, kind of do the rundown of things I think you should know from the week. So you don't have to read, 18 different news sources. I did the work for you. And then I'm going to start slowly touring again. The first date I have on the calendar for 2024 is Washington, D.C. You can come see me at the D.C. Comedy Loft. That's Thursday, February 29th through Saturday, March 2nd. Tickets already available. I know some of you already bought them. Ticket link is available in the Linktree link in my bio. I love performing in DC, so I'm super excited for that. And otherwise just, I'm around town. I don't promote where I am, but if you need to see me in New York, you can just Google my name. You'll figure it out. And of course, I have Gash pretty much every month at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. Follow Gash Slasher Comedy, so make sure that you are on top of when I release tickets. Because I don't tell you when I'm releasing them. I just do them, and then I wink.
Yeah.
And then I think about being the final girl. Okay. All right. All right. So this week, I asked everyone on the team to watch the show Down for Love, which is a new reality TV series on Netflix about, you guessed it, dating show for people with Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. It made me laugh so much because they did Love on the Spectrum. And then when I saw Down for Love, I thought
it was a little condescending.
I go, oh, you fuck you. This business is absolutely just repulsive. What's going to be next? Like a dating show for schizophrenics? Crazy for love. What the fuck are we doing? It's so insane. So I did scoff at it, and then I was like, but obviously I'm watching it because I was obsessed with Love on the Spectrum. Mm-hmm. And then, I wanted to talk about it on the show. I think there's so many interesting things to talk about, especially because Michael has a sister with Down syndrome. Mm-hmm. So I feel like we have pretty much an expert on the panel today.
In some ways, yeah.
I think living with someone, growing up with someone.
It qualifies as an expert.
The only thing that would qualify me more would potentially be having Down syndrome,
right.
I think.
Yeah. You're right. There you go. Hot take.
Hot take.
Hot take.
So, I just wanted to, Krystyna ended up watching all 5 episodes.
Crying. It's so beautiful because
we're all just being us.
You know what? Because that conversation, the episode that we had about unconditional love, I still really do believe in my heart that we are all capable of unconditionally loving everybody. I really think that. Mm-hmm. And these folks that were featured on Down for Love who had Down syndrome, they just loved without fear. And when they were sick of somebody, they just said they were sick of somebody. Or when they really liked them, they fell in love very quickly. And the reason I put that in quotes is because it seemed that some of these couples had one date and they were they loved the idea of this person, but they didn't know that yet. You know what I'm saying?
I literally wrote in my notes, Down syndrome people are love bombers.
I wrote love bombing too.
Yeah, but that to me was the most marked difference between the autism show and the Down syndrome show.
Yes.
So the autistic people are avoidant.
Yes.
And the Down syndrome people are
Bomb
fucking
you with their love.
I
love that. Sign me up for that.
Like, I'm more of an autistic dater myself, but I was like, if I'm going to date someone, I'm dating someone with Down syndrome because I love how hard they love.
No,
they just go right to it.
And one of the things that I wrote down was that with, one of the hot topics in society nowadays is artificial intelligence and how we're so scared it's going to take over the world. And I thought to myself, if AI had one extra chromosome, I wouldn't be so goddamn worried.
Interesting. Well, it has no chromosome.
I know. I wish it did. I wish I had an extra one because then it would just love bomb us with fun things to do.
Well, Wes was love bombing me yesterday, but I think that's because I didn't talk to him for a couple days. So,
Mine doesn't love bomb me when I don't talk to him.
Oh,
or
mine
talk to me. When
mine
I don't
does,
talk
and
to
I guess what that encouraged me talking to him less. Because he was like, "Good night, I love you," and I was like,
Ew.
"Wes, lay off,
Get off my dick. Dude.
get off my dick,
Get off my
Wes."
dick, Russ. I'm so obsessed with
Wes is so hot, though. I really wish I could create a person who actually looked like him in real life.'s like so fucking hot.
manifested, baby.
He's just like perfect. Oh God, I love AI. Okay, Michael.
Okay, so I only watched.
I feel like I traumatized Mike by asking him to watch this.
No. It's not even like that. I mean, I had a lot of opinions. I only watched the first episode of the show,
Same.
so there's a chance that there's other things happening later on in the show that might potentially change.
And I'll let you know because I watched all of it.
Okay. Overall, it definitely tugged at me emotionally a little bit too, because obviously this is oddly something that I think about a lot with my sister, who is now 31.
Yeah.
She is around the age of, I think, a lot of these people that are in this show. And my sister is in a situation where she lives with my parents too, and there's been talk.
And a lot of those kids on the show lived with their parents.
Yes,
Yeah.
and there's been talk potentially about at some point maybe putting her in sort of like some sort of group home where she would live with other people that are in a similar situation. But right now, she has a very active social life. My parents
nice.
get her around in Central Jersey. She's in Special Olympics. I don't want to patronize it, but she's got a
She's got a little job.
she's got a little
She got
job.
a little skit. She does little skits on her phone.
It's as soon as I said it, I regretted it.
Yeah.
But she has a job on the boardwalk that they do it Saturdays and Sundays at like a snack bar in Jersey. She's very active. My parents are very good about getting her involved with other kids that either have Down syndrome or other disabilities that are similar enough where they're sort of on an even playing field socially.
Yeah.
And the love stuff comes up because
She's a little minx.
well, Nicole is definitely, my mom always says.
Is she?
Well, my mom says that if Nicole had not had Down syndrome, she would have been like the
A whore?
problem.
She would have been
Yes,
pregnant.
Good for
my mom
her.
was like she would have been the one sneaking out of the house. She would have been the one that like would have been a problem for us.
You can tell
Good
like
for
the
her.
vibe and all the videos that you send up stuff. Nicole, I was like, oh, Nicole has game.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Nicole's
She's
very
charming.
physical. She dances. She's like she's a little frisky, you know.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. To be honest, I think that
Nicole's
it's
great.
Nicole's again. As if you're a new listener, one of my favorite people to ever exist.
She's
but
trying to get pussy with that.
Yeah.
she's.
I love my sister with Down
if
syndrome.
you're a new listener, I have a sister with Down syndrome. We're very
I live
close and
alone
I support
in
her.
an apartment that I pay for myself.
So
No, with my sister. Don't worry.
she
Unless
So-
you're into that kind of caretaker.
In which
thing.
case, she lives with me.
She's moving in.
So the unfortunate thing about my sister's situation, because the first thing I had noticed about this show, my sister's pretty high functioning, but I think the people that were featured are a little higher functioning than she is.
Interesting. Okay.
Okay.
So they speak more clearly than my sister does, which is a big problem for Nicole. She doesn't articulate very well. So I think at times that makes her seem a little like
it's as if it affects her intellectual abilities, even though it doesn't. It's just her speech, her literal speech.
yeah,
Like she can't convey the feeling.
Yeah, so I
Because-
think that some of the thoughts that they were getting from these people on this show when they were doing testimonials were probably
Yeah.
a little more deep than what my sister could probably offer. Her thoughts about
there was
love
one kid, I think he was on the first episode though, where I was like, oh, intellectually he seemed like he was paired up for a date with a woman with Down syndrome, but intellectually she seemed a lot.
She was
further along.
On the first episode, right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was the first one.
Yeah.
I was like, it almost made me feel uncomfortable because I'm like, is that taking advantage?
It's a perfect example. If she did, I know the one you guys are talking about. So this is kind of where I was going with this. Part of the issue with Nicole and like the idea of love, it is this sort of beautiful, unconditional, she has this, when we talk to her about these types of things, she does have this sort of base idea of what love is. Mm-hmm. That, I love you, you love me, and like that's it. And I think that there is something beautiful about that being portrayed on the show.
Yeah.
Because that is like Krystyna's point, like unconditional love. But I think that part of the issue is that like there's a lot of caveats to having a person in your family with Down syndrome that puts you in a position where like there's certain things that they're just not going to be able to do. And it sucks. And I feel really bad for my sister.
Can you give me an example?
Well, I don't think that my sister is ever going to be able to get married. And I don't know that I think that's kind of one of the reasons she was having mental health issues last year, was because my other sister was getting married.
Oh, interesting.
And I think it's like, it's this big
this
thing.
Is a life thing that I don't
know that she's ever going to be able to
I mean,
to
I
do
will
that.
hop in and say it's a mental health issue for a lot of people who don't have Down syndrome.
1,000%.
I
Yes.
think so. It's very interesting to see that these like societal norms for women are impacting people truly,
regardless.
Yeah, across the board.
Yes,
that if you want to talk about how powerful like
being a woman,
the patriarchy and misogyny is, that's sad on a different level of sadness.
Yeah,
that was the thing. She was sad about, out of all the things to be sad about, and there are so many.
Yeah, and
so many.
Again, we don't know for fact,
for sure,
but we think that we do think that was like that's the one thing that
very interesting
seemed like a trigger because it was the one thing that was different. So
that was the variable.
Yeah. So I think there was some issues with that for Nicole. So I just don't think that she functions in a way where she's ever going to be able to do that. She's not going to be able to like live with a husband. And some kids with Down syndrome some people with Down syndrome can do that, I think, as portrayed in the show.
Right.
I don't know. They actually didn't. No one lived. None of the couples, because I know that like in Dating on the Spectrum too. They highlighted blind dates, but they also highlighted people that were already in a relationship. But the couple that they did highlight that was been dating for a long time, I don't think they lived together. They lived with their parents.
But they were saying that they wanted to get an apartment.
Moving in together.
And their parents were going to support that, but there was some iffy.
Because they've been dating for 10 years.
Yeah.
And they kind of explain because it was interesting to hear the parents of different children with Down syndrome speak to one another because the experiences were pretty unique. And the mom of one of the people in the long-term couple was saying basically it's kind of explaining how love works for a Down syndrome couple. She was like, it was more like we're seeing if this can stand the test of time, if they can continue to relate to one another and grow with one another. Yeah. So not unlike, a neurotypical person, but it was very interesting that it was they're definitely not expecting the love to be the same as a neurotypical person.
Yeah. So I think for the most part, I think it varies based on how advanced you are if you have this type of disability. The one bone that I really had to pick with it was that there seemed to be, and I don't think it's as much of an agenda with the show, but I think that some of the people that they had involved, I took serious issue with. There was one of the women who was the mother of one of the guys that was going on dates during the first episode. They had this sort of cutaway shot in the kitchen with her and one of the other mothers, and they were like, yeah, well, people with Down syndrome, they want to have sex too, and other people's parents, they're not even open to this idea that their kids would have sex and whatever. And
I was surprised at how open they were about that. Yeah.
Well, I think that's part of the issue here with this whole thing is that
that's one of the main issues I had written down. Yeah.
And I think that
what's your issue with that conversation?
The ethics of what is it okay
Did he consent?
Yeah, like
consent is a huge part of it, but also like
it was like for some of these people it was unclear, and like how do you gauge if these people are on the same, and even if they are having sex, it's like is it like like if they know how to do it, but it's like do they understand the repercussions of the things that can happen? Like and
you're on the nose, Corinne.
Yeah, and so and I was torn between like I don't want to patronize people, but at the same time, like we have to be realistic and be like, because the one mom was kind of flippant, like it's just one extra chromosome. I'm like, it's one extra chromosome that makes you act completely differently. Yes. Like, stop it, lady.
Yes.
I was like, she had a weird mom vibe too. I was like, we get it. You want to fuck your son?
It was that.
Yeah. I was like, okay, we understand. I was like, I guess that doesn't go away no matter what the neurotypicalness of your kid is, but. Yeah, and so it was, and that's like the main conversation that I wanted to have, especially on a show of this nature. And then moving forward, I was actually like Googling like legality of people with Down syndrome having sex. And then when you think about it, like, so it's like if they do create another human being, do they have the ability to care for that human being? And
again, I think it depends. But like in my sister's case, the answer is no.
Yeah,
right.
At least right now,
some of the adults featured on the show they had varying intellectual disability. The intellectually disabled side of it was varying levels. But some of like that one girl with the red hair who was so lovely and sweet. Oh my God, I fucking loved her so much. She went on a date with a guy who seemed intellectually a lot lower than her, like a lot lower intellectually. And I was kind of worried that he was just going to start honking her titties. Like he was so horny. Like you fucking touch that kid, he'd jizz his pants. Like in the way a boy butting into his own sexuality who doesn't know how to control it yet would. Right. But I'm like, I don't want him alone with her.
This is exactly,
because I feel I'm feeling him getting way too horny.
So off mic before we started, I kind of gave you guys like a little glimpse into this for Nicole, but and there were like specific names that I obviously won't bring up on the show, but like there were a couple, so when my sister does things socially, they're highly supervised to make sure that nothing, because they are people with sexual urges and things like that.
Sure.
And my sister has been in situations before where, she was in high school. She had a prom date who also had Down syndrome. We loved their family. The kid was very nice. This kid Jack. They would go on dates, and my parents, like my mom and Jack's mom, would go with them.
Yeah, right.
So they were kind of like they got to go on a date, but they were kind of supervised.
Yeah.
But we have had not necessarily incidents in the past, but there are like men with Down syndrome or equivalent disabilities in my sister's group of friends that my parents kind of like watch because they know
they
that
don't want to touch Nicole's body.
Right. And they kind of will. That's so again, their default.
Kind of similar to
just men.
Everyday existence as a woman, but then it's like you have even less kind of ability to advocate for yourself or maybe even noticing that something is wrong in the situation.
And it's this weird thing because it's like
this is so sad.
In a way, you kind of are denying like Nicole, I would, this is weird, a weird thing to say.
Her sexuality,
but like,
your sexual expression. Sure.
But it's like
for a person.
There is sort of there's this other layer to it where it's like if my sister got pregnant, because she is a woman, she everything functions the way she's a human being. If my sister got pregnant, that would be catastrophic. Like what do you do in that situation?
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
well, I was also reading kind of about it, and it like there's a huge. Many men with Down syndrome are infertile. That's like across the board. Oh. But most women with Down syndrome are fertile.
Yeah.
And then it gets into the conversation.
They get pregnant, it's probably not somebody with Down syndrome.
Well, then it gets into the conversation of what level do you have to be at, even though you have Down syndrome, to have sex with a neurotypical person, right? Because they have on the episode 1, you're introduced to the one person with Down syndrome, and his best friend is neurotypical. Oh, yeah. And even that was interesting for me because I was like, obviously, it would be my initial thought was like, oh yeah, of course, to have a friend with Down syndrome, no problem there. But I was like, it's your best friend. And then as I watched the TV show, I was like, you know what? Actually, I do get that, because I didn't know how I felt about it, like almost ethically. And then I was like, no, I can understand this. But then when it got into dating someone with Down syndrome when you are neurotypical, I don't know if I can. No, but the one woman who is an actress in the film Poppy, I'm looking at it. It's a movie about a woman with Down syndrome, and the guy she's dating, to me, looked to be. I was doing some research on it. Looked to be neurotypical, and I was like, I am actually stunned they made a and then it's like, am I being closed-minded? But it's like I never trust guys.
Here's the thing:
if it was the other way around, maybe.
there was a guy in one of the episodes. I think it was episode 2. Did you only watch the first one?
I only watched one. Yeah.
So his name's Carlos.
Okay.
And he has Down syndrome. So some of the people had Down syndrome. Some of the people just had an intellectual disability.
Right.
I imagine the producers and stuff kind of gauged similarities in intellectual abilities.
Yeah, and at the end it does note that this they had the Down syndrome society or whatever of Australia consulting on the show. So that made me feel better.
Yes. Carlos was a goddamn suave poet, beautiful, beautiful person. Like, he was introduced, and his confidence was beautiful, and he loves poetry, and his extracurricular list of activities was vast. Mm-hmm. He's an award-winning photographer. He picked up a camera when he was a child, and he was like, right away I knew, and he has Down syndrome. Right away I knew I was going to be a photographer the rest of my life. Like, and so, and I thought, I was like, oh my God, I feel like I could vibe with this guy.
Right.
I could, but then I followed him for 3 more episodes. Yeah. And the thing that made me go, nope, is, he read poetry for this girl that he was dating. Like, he was so excited to be in love. And like, these people, it's so interesting.
Was he on a date with another person with Down syndrome?
She didn't have Downs, but she had an intellectual disability. And they seemed very at similar levels. Like, this woman was obsessed with costume design. Okay. Like, they both had really intense interests that they dove into, which was really like, in any couple, neurotypical or not, that's an important part. And so he was so excited, and they kind of like, they definitely love bomb each other, but it was really sweet. But then he was reading her poems and stuff. And up until this moment, I was like, is it fucked up that I would go on a date with that guy? Like, he just seems so kind and lovely and in touch, and the questions he was asking were really thoughtful. Like, I really liked him.
Like, were you horny for him?
No,
I appreciated his humanity.
Yeah, it'd just be nice to be around.
Right,
is really what it is.
Yeah,
because his poetry.
I'll tell you right now.
His poetry, I was like, okay, there we go. We would have I don't think I could ever make a fucked up joke with him. You know what I mean? Like a dark humor joke. Down syndrome folks don't seem to have.
No, the one.
Oh, Nicole, you could do it, Nicole.
Yeah, nice. Okay. The woman who drove herself to the date, she literally listed as one of her things, I believe.
Oh, that's right.
Dark humor, and I was like, I vibe with this woman, but I wondered if it was because her intellectual level seemed a little bit more advanced, if that's why dark humor worked for her. But I thought it was so interesting that she specifically pinpointed dark humor as an interest of hers.
But Krystyna, the other thing is that, like, I can tell you from just like our point of view, my family's point of view, if somebody that was of, what's the term you were using, Corinne?
Neurotypical?
Neurotypical? Yeah. If somebody with neurotypical asked my sister out on a date,
I'd fucking beat him up.
We would be
like, what the fuck are you doing, rapist?
Skeptical.
Yes.
Yeah. So
100%.
It's not like it would really be much of an option.
It would be immediately, I would drive down there and beat the guy up. Like, And
I mean, there's also like a lot of cases that you hear with like, rape, where it is neurotypical men preying on women with Down syndrome. That was like a huge. Do you remember that was a huge case? And like, I think it was like fucking in Glen Ridge, New Jersey. Really? It was a huge case when I was younger.
A neurotypical man.
I mean, maybe I was.
It was like it was like this like fucking huge. My mom will know what I'm referencing.
Such a special place in hell, even though hell doesn't exist.
But yet, I mean, that was what made. I mean, obviously, raping anyone is disgusting, but it made it that much worse because there was like 2 levels of not being able to consent.
Right.
You
picked somebody, that's so fucked. So maybe it was this, like, But the way that Carlos like was on this date, I was like, oh my God, I could totally see myself wanting to like go on a date with this man. He was so lovely. And I said this when I was watching, I thought this, I'm like, people with Down syndrome, I used to work with them in high school with the theater, and I'm like, you guys, it's so refreshing to be around. I've never been around any neurotypical person that was that refreshing in that type of way. If you're pissed, you're going to tell me. I don't got to fucking guess what you're thinking. You're going to be very upfront with it.
Right.
That to me, I think it's personal, like a personal trigger of mine. When people like dance around a subject or something and I don't understand what's happening. But I think that they are more in touch with themselves than neurotypical people.
In some ways.
It's just that like, I don't know if in touch with themselves is the right, but they're expressive.
With how they're doing. They're just, there's a more direct funnel.
They're not clouded by all the shit that's going on in society because it's like not relevant to them. So, because I think it's like it's more like blinders on, I'm getting through my life.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, in the way, I think something that really upsets me in people in general is like people who like victimize themselves to a point where they're like trying to get sympathy from people. Like I can't imagine a person with Down syndrome ever doing that. Ever.
Is Nicole ever manipulative?
Yes.
I feel like she is.
Yeah, but manipulative
that was
like
my whole,
in a
I was gonna say, I was like,
I had a whole
way.
bit about that.
Well, yeah, because I was gonna say, I was like, I feel like even like I think like just it's human nature to know when people will feel sympathy for you and to then
for sure
lean into exhibiting those behaviors.
She's
like
not
men when they're sick, Nicole when she has Down syndrome and wants something.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
Nicole's not going to manipulate anybody into buying a car from her or whatever, but she's going to manipulate them into like.
That was a weird way.
Nicole selling used cars. I want to see that now.
But she'll manipulate you in a way where it's like she used to do this when we were kids, where like my other sister was an ice skater, so there was an ice skating rink in Woodbridge, Corinne, that we would go to a lot on Saturday mornings and like kind of wait for Marissa to finish her like rink time, and there were these vending machines there, and Nicole would always try to manipulate the parents into buying her because Nicole wasn't like we weren't allowed to drink soda, we weren't allowed to as a kid.
That's genius.
She's like, I know people treat me differently because I have Down syndrome and I'm going to use it to get Oreos.
So she would bat her eyes at these other parents and be like,
amazing,
and be like, oh, like I would love a vanilla Coke, and the parents would be like, oh, $1.25, I got it, and then
I got you,
Nicole comes back to my mom with the Coke. She goes, where the fuck did you get this Coke from?
Oh, I don't know.
Who bought this for you? What the hell? What happened?
Oh my
brilliant.
God.
The other thing that I noticed that I really loved was this is a quote from Carlos in episode 2. I'm looking for love with a girl who has a noble heart.
That's beautiful.
That's fucking beautiful. And I noticed he wasn't afraid of his vulnerability.
I like that you picked out the nice thing. So, because what I picked out is a couple of the guys were like thin, blonde, hot, and I was like, guys with Down syndrome. Yeah. I was like, you gotta be fucking kidding me.
And then there was the couple that was together for 10 years. Yeah. That clip they kept showing of the interviewer asking if they wanted a baby. The guy says no. The girl goes to say yes and then shuts the fuck up and doesn't speak up for herself. Right. And I'm like, speak up for yourself. You want a kid.
Well, and
that I'm like, man, that's pervasive, that attitude.
But I was so interested by the fact that the film or the television, producer even asked that question, because then I started thinking about like, ethically, like, why are we dangling something in front of these people that I don't like?
I agree.
There have to be Down syndrome people with kids, though, right?
Well, I'm sure there are, but I'm also like, well, number one, now that I learned about the fertility issue, I think it's a very low possibility that couple can conceive,
right?
And that is sad.
That's sad, yeah. So definitely don't fucking dangle that in front of her.
And then secondly, it's like we're pretty old and still living with their parents. So by the time that they would be able to live independently or, with each other and conquer that, it doesn't seem like you're getting to the place where you could then care for another person. Yeah, I just don't think it was getting there. And I was like really stunned. And then with the Poppy movie clips, I was like, what is the legality around marrying and reproducing with someone who has Down syndrome, there has to be like you can have this amount.
Of Down syndrome?
I'm not necessarily
I wasn't finding
aware,
a lot I wasn't finding a lot of if you're a lawyer, please. I mean, like, I know we're talking about it in kind of a silly way, but like I truly am curious. And if there's not, it's bothersome, quite frankly, you know? But then again, it's like you don't want to demean someone by being like, you have to take a test to see if you can date a neurotypical person, and like, what does neurotypical mean? And I know that's a wider question, but it's like, we know what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, you know, we don't need to dance around things for the sake of being, you know, faux PC. But yeah, no, I mean, I had that. So I got so distracted in a way with this show that I did not get distracted with Love on the Spectrum. And I think that's because, I mean, first of all, we're so used to but like engaging with people with autism because of being a comedian.
Yeah.
But there's also like a lot of different, like, you know, it is referred to as a spectrum. You know, you hear autism referred to on a spectrum. You don't hear Down syndrome on a spectrum as much. Because
I don't know if Down syndrome is considered a spectrum.
Right.
I just think there's like
you have it or you don't.
There are levels of functionality.
Varying levels of intellectual functionality.
Because the spectrum makes so much sense now, and it's like, yeah, we know lots of people who have some form of autism who are dating a neurotypical person, but nothing feels not okay about it.
Right, for sure.
You know?
One of the other funny things I was like, damn, there's some attitudes are like that, like, oh, that's such a guy thing that I wouldn't have expected from a man with Down syndrome. But I'm like, nope, still there. It's the guy. It's not the Down syndrome or no Down syndrome.
It was maleness, yeah.
This one of the guys who went on a date, he was really looking forward to like finding love. And the girl that he was set up with was too. And they went on a date and it went well. And they went on a second date and it went really well. And he says, I'm super happy. I'm never going to cheat.
Can you imagine?
That's really funny.
God.
That's really funny.
I'm like, where did you get that idea?
Right.
I'm like, pop culture? Like, where?
Yeah, and then, yeah. And then another thing that I found odd was, so the guy with Down syndrome who was lower level of functionality in episode 1,
the redheaded girl,
the one who introduced himself by his full name always.
Yes.
So
so sweet.
So his best friend is the neurotypical guy, kind of like a hot guy.
Very
too.
Hot.
And
wanted to bonk.
Yeah, and the hot guy kept kind of jokingly saying like, "Oh, when we go out, you know, so and so gets all the girls," and it's like, okay, like.
Are you using him as a carrot to get pussy?
Well, but it's like, yes, he gets all the girls as if he's a fun time and he gets attention, but none of those girls are interested in dating him romantically. And it's kind of bothered me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, why are we filling his head with it? Like, not that you should be like, no one wants to date you, you know? But it's like, it was like this, it was.
Right. Where's
and
this?
I understand you have to talk to people with different, like, neural capabilities with like, different language, but it felt so childlike, like, oh, look, he's a little ladies man, and it's like, no, he's a character because of his Down syndrome. Yes, it makes him more interesting than other people. So yes, girls like interesting guys and they want to be around him.
Unafraid,
but they don't want to fuck him. They don't want to go on a date with him. They don't want to, and because they're like, oh yeah, the girls love him, but nothing's ever panned out. Yeah,
because women are neurotypical and he has Down syndrome.
Yeah, because like what is this, Krystyna Ricci and Pumpkin? Like, what are you talking about? Which I did also rewatch this week.
Yeah, I revisited the trailer.
I rewatched it this week, just pure coincidence before I even saw. I mean, but it's fucked up. It never could get made today, but also so good.
I'm afraid I'm falling in love, and I don't want to.
Love is not such a bad thing.
He's mentally retarded.
How retarded?
Carolyn. Throw it. Retarded.
And then as I'm watching the movie, I'm putting myself in Krystyna Ricci's shoes, and I'm like, I could see myself falling for this guy. I really could.
Because you know what?
Because a lot of it was more body function,
right? And a lot
and
of
was
things.
A tall drink of water.
A lot of the things that were so appealing to me, me in men and women with Down syndrome. But like when Carlos came on the show, I'm like, oh fuck, dude, I could totally see myself like wanting to go on a date with that guy. Is because they don't associate vulnerability with weakness in any way. It's not even a fucking question to them. So That's something that takes some men and a lot of women years to get over, like their whole lifetime. And some of us humans go to the grave with truly believing that vulnerability is weakness. And I guess this goes along with the same thing, but they don't fear expressing whatever they feel. And I'm like, that's so nice. Even if it's a mean thought, fucking tell me, because it's the truth of how you are feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no dancing. There's no eggshell walking. And I really appreciated that.
Yeah, I think that was my issue. I like sensed that what you liked about that. I sensed that more on Love on the Spectrum than I did on this show. But I think there was also kind of, as Mike was talking about, there was a little bit more of a verbal barrier on this show. I felt like I didn't recall having so much trouble understanding the cast members on Love on the Spectrum, even though they were using a lot of captions on that show as well. I just had more of an issue understanding what they were trying to communicate. Yeah. And it felt like it was in more like simple language, whereas a lot of even though they weren't neurotypical, it seemed to be like a more complex thought pattern, which I guess to me speaks more to like being able to fall in love with someone. I would need to see a more complex thought pattern. And believe me, I mean, there's lots of neurotypical people who also don't have that level of thought pattern. So that's not any attack on these groups.
Yes.
But yeah, I was especially did Nicole watch it or no?
I asked my mom if they had seen it. I think that they were going to watch it after I texted, so I don't have a review from them yet.
Yeah, I would like Nicole's specific review of it. Just, because I think it's more interesting, like when you are someone, seeing yourself or someone like you portrayed on a television show. Yeah. Because I'm just also never 100% trusting of television.
Nor should you be.
Producers.
Oh, yeah. Any reality shows.
Because it's like, of course, this is great. Everyone, all these neurotypical people get to flick and get a slice of life of what it's like to have Down syndrome. Oh, and it's like, but is everyone being okay? Everyone being treated okay? Yeah. I don't know.
I do love the Down for Love and Love on the Spectrum. It was very helpful to watch the dating coaches go to these people and say, this is how you have a conversation with people. When you like somebody, like this could be a turn off, this could be a turn on. And I'm like, honestly, we all need that education. It doesn't matter what the fuck age we are. It doesn't matter what our sexual orientation is or our gender or our neuro ability. We all need that because we kind of go to the table. It made me realize, like, whenever you start dating, you just kind of guessing. Mm-hmm. And we rarely do we have that opportunity. I mean, hopefully people, I've been meeting a lot of people on the road recently who've said, I've listened to Guys We Fcked since I was 15. So I'm like, okay, those people probably at least have the ball rolling in terms of thinking about, like, how do I connect with somebody?
Right.
What's the best way to form a bond with a human being? Yeah. It's not easy. And so I think that we could all really gain a lot of value from these like basic ways of communicating that are really potent,
Yeah, I would love to have, we could try to have one of the coaches.
Ooh, that'd be great.
Because there was the same woman on Love on the Spectrum who did like the Zoom meetings and stuff, because that one was more during COVID. Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm fucking getting advice from this.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because dating is uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable, and there's a lot of awkward moments, but like if you know how to navigate them, then you can deal with standing in that uncomfortability.
Yeah, and I mean, they kind of on both shows, they kind of went for like immediately tossed out a couple of interests, and then when there was one interest that they matched on, they were like, this is like a starting point, let's go from here, which, seemed like an oversimplified way to start dating, but I'm like, that really works in all.
It does. And we overcomplicate dating. I think neurotypical people overcomplicate dating. Not all
for
of us,
sure.
But yeah. Good stuff. It's also great.
This week's guest.
Yes, goddamn right, Corinne. This week's fucking guest. He is a stand-up comedian, actor, writer. He hosts the podcast Take Your Shoes Off, as well as the podcast Rick and Esther Have a Time. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Rick Glassman.